So, we go again. Number 35, the Darkness to Light Godcast. This one is the Experience Live. Number 35, the Experience Live. And into January now, kind of halfway into January, getting started, getting back up to speed again. Really interesting this kind of time of year, just watching where people are at and where I'm at after Christmas and all the kind of the good stuff that came through after the holiday. We didn't really stop, we kind of kept going. There was no really kind of downtime, and even when we came back, getting back into it again, it's been like a bit of active recovery, and now the momentum that's got going just now with the vortex and the mission and all the stuff we're doing, it feels like we're in a really, really good place. We're on the upswing after, a really kind of a challenging end to the year last year, and so many good things to be talking about, so many things to be getting excited about. It's coming from everywhere just now. The Experience Live on Sunday, which is what I'd like to talk about most today, and indeed the next two Sundays, and then leading on from that, where we go from there. The plan with it was dead simple. In meditation before Christmas, the desire was to help people come January time, when they were going to be kind of struggling after Christmas. People are going to be overwhelmed with all the pressures of Christmas, and obviously the doom and gloom of January with nothing to look forward to for most people. There's this big lead up to Christmas, but it started, sometime. I remember being in Glasgow and seeing one of the Christmas trees up in John Lewis, and I think it was October time, the end of October. So obviously there's a real kind of push towards Christmas and getting your money and all the kind of stuff that comes with it. And then after that, it's like, right, okay, what's next? What do we do now? We're looking forward to Easter. What's the next big thing on the calendar? So for me, having something to look forward to in January, and having the ability with this work to do something that could help people, that's the reason that it came through. The Experience Live was really the follow-up and the next level to people coming in and getting through, the Experience Live online, which was a guided breathwork and relaxation into meditation session. Started towards the end of the summer last year. My desire to get people in about it. I think it's more about offering, like a bridge into this work. We saw it again on Sunday, past there, and incidentally, thank you everybody that came on Sunday. There was over 70 signed up, but as always with these events, the fall off, if you get half, you're doing well. It kind of feels like, especially the free events, it's different if somebody pays for it and they're investing in themselves, then they won't miss it. That's one of the big things about the exchange, where people kind of need to be investing in themselves, but at the same time, desire for people that really kind of maybe want to get a wee kind of taste of it, want to come and meet me, want to come and meet the team, and maybe see the next step if they've been running about it before. It's always interesting to watch the numbers that show up, especially kind of 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning. For a lot of people, it's a bit of travel as well. So really grateful for anybody that came. Probably a 50% fall off. There was over 35 in the room, which was great. And the team that were there, the apprentices through the programme, the programme members that came to support and be part of it. Obviously really grateful to everybody that's involved within this mission, within the group, within the community. Really excited for this weekend. There are a lot more coming. It's interesting when people came in and went through, that next stepping stone, that next bridge into what it is we're doing. I'm very aware of the stuff that I'm talking about and how it's perceived, to be mental for the outside. I get it, I'm very, very cynical, and I grew up in building sites myself, so I understand when somebody comes in and it's like, they hear us and they see us speaking. Even people within the group, they've got the challenges with, me calling people, sisters and brothers. And I'm going to explain a wee bit about that as we go on as well, because that's real to me. That is a certain level of consciousness. You reach a certain place and you get to see that we are absolutely all one at a certain level. So the notion of separation becomes an illusion. So the people that are on about it, the language we're using, the way we're talking, the things that we're talking about, I get it that it's really kind of, it sounds a bit rainbows and unicorns and mental, and that absolutely is not the case. And I think the more and more people that get on about it, the more we normalise it, which is really what this is all about for me. It's about normalising this stuff. It's about normalising, the ability to, be aware of what it is you're doing to yourself, and the ability to normalise these tools and techniques and practices that make things better. And I suppose at the ultimate level, it's about normalising, things like meditation and God and what God is, and then, giving people the direct experience of it. That's what the Experience Live is all about. And they come in online, people normally come in online, and we as a team have been working over the last while, probably the last 6 months we've been talking about it. really kind of, how do we get people to that place? Because walking into that room, and hearing the stuff that I'm talking about, and this is where I forget, because this is normal to me, and it's interesting the conversations that we have, and you can kind of see people tuning in. You certainly feel them tuning in, when we're having conversations. You can kind of get a wee bit of, right, okay, it's a different language, we're talking about consciousness, and you're talking about the divine, talking about God, and the awarenesses and the power of intention, and there's so many bits to it. It's absolutely vast, the entire system. So the experience life is another bridge, another step in the right direction, towards people, living this intentional life. That's what the programme is all about. It's about, being intentional with your life, taking back control, taking back your power, reconnecting and remembering is the first part of it. That reconnection process, that's the plan for the Sunday, the session down at New Lanark. The experience live is to reconnect and to remember the goodness that's inside you. And watching people coming in and going through that experience, it was fantastic to see it again before the day begins. When people come in, you can obviously feel it. We've all been there when you walk into a room and you don't know what it is, and a lot of people had no idea why they were there. It's always fascinating to me to hear when people, how they find it and how they come about it. One lady in particular was talking about how she jumped onto Instagram to basically delete the app because of how much it was basically costing her life. It was taking too much time out of her life, and then she caught the video of me last week in the trees. Which, interesting enough, I wasn't even going to do. I wasn't not in the best place, but I just wasn't feeling it that day, and I kind of had to force it a wee bit. I was just getting back to work, I suppose, in terms of doing the videos and trying to find my flow as well after Christmas, and being on holiday and being away from all of it to a certain extent. And interesting how she went in to delete the app, and then she saw the video, and then she signed up to come, and then the experience she got, and the relief and the way that she expressed after it, what she'd went through. That's the power of this work, that's the power that we're sharing, and again we saw it in so many different souls. I talk about miracles every single day, and I also talk about the desire to give it to one person every single day, one soul at a time, every single day. That's the plan. But when you get a room like that with there's 30 people in it, probably 20 people for the first time, never been through it before, maybe a few of them had been online, some of them were just basically either called towards it or dragged there, and watching them going through the whole thing, hearing my story, which I think is important. I spoke a bit about on the back of one of your guys talking about the power in this and what it does to people, and all the different kind of pop-up gurus that are jumping about and selling their wares and like trying to whatever it is, the best thing for sliced bread. And then you look at what we've got, this entire system, and what it does for people and how it helps. In my 30 years experience, I think it's very important for me to tell my story. And always feel kind of bad because anybody that's heard it before, it's a fantastic story, and there's loads of different bits to it, and I never ever set out with like the bits that I'm going to add in, and there's different bits come through all different stages. It's in so many different levels, and depending on where I am, obviously depends how much I share it. So, and that's the reason I do share it, is so that it gives me credibility, to explain where I was, which was absolutely in the darkness. The ego in excess, which almost cost me my life, and then the transition phase that I shouldn't have probably made it through, and then the journey back to where we are just now. I absolutely got it for myself, and then over the last whatever it's been, been teaching it properly for probably the last 15 years, and then since the Vortex opened in 2016, really kind of sharing it on a daily basis, and then the last couple of years professionally, the intention to really take it out, and then even more so the last year, since Michael and Fern and the entire team, which are now here, the plan is to take it to the world. So it's been a really long process, and everything I'm doing, everything I'm talking about is my own experience. It's the stuff that basically I use to help me. And when people hear the story, when they hear the stuff that I've been through, no matter what it is, whether it's the vaccine and the damage, or the kind of the heavy stuff, the sexualization stuff, or what I went through in Ibiza, where I lost almost everything, the place where I was, which was I started in hopelessness, broken and hopeless, mental breakdown, nervous breakdown, emotional breakdown, no really any idea that it was a spiritual breakdown, but the separation completely away from that. And then here in my journey, over the last 28 years, now in January in 2000. And what we're in 25, that from 1997 when it started. Now this is my 28th year of working on myself every single day and working on these tools and techniques. And now, where we're at with the whole thing, especially, at the level you need to get to, I think, to be, a place where you can actually, share it and maintain your own vibration and maintain your own kind of peace of mind and your own kind of place of alignment, being in that flow state. It's taken a hell of a lot of work for me to get to this place where, it doesn't really matter where I am, the desire to help people and the ability to help people, no matter what you're coming in with, whether you're kind of maybe struggling a wee bit yourself or you're not quite feeling it. It's just fascinating how over that period of time you get the opportunity, through the work to build the muscle, so you can then, as we are now, ready to take it to the world. So this year is already, it's really exciting, and we're after a flyer. We really are. The experience live has been incredible. It's been, again, when you're in the flow, when you're in that place of alignment, which before Christmas I really had to decide I was going to do. It wasn't working for me. I was very much out of alignment. I was struggling. I wasn't happy. I wasn't well. I believe I was probably close to burnout a couple of times last year. I probably did burn out towards the end of the year. And it was interesting, my wife last week, we're talking about, her own business and how my wee daughter, who went to work in America last year, for about, I think she was away for nearly 4 months, and how when she left then she watched my wife, so my wife was basically covering her job. That was the middle of May that she went, and right up until probably this week, when I really kind of started to get my wife back, because for the whole year, because of kind of staff shortages and one thing and another, my wife was working way more than I would certainly have liked in terms of the support for everything, the house and the dug and the wains and all that kind of stuff. When she goes to her work, then although this is my work, there's obviously things that need done on the home front as well. So it was a really challenging year, an expansion that we went through, and the things that we did and the things that we achieved. Obviously really proud of it, but we weren't there. It's not finished. That felt last year about putting the foundations in. And we're saying that a lot just now. We put the foundations in last night. We put it together last year, and we brought something. We created something that is original, that is absolutely profound. I do believe that's the evidence that we see when people are doing about this work. But now it's time to kick on, and the experience live and the way that came through. That next step for people to come and go through the process and get round about me. Being live in person as opposed to live online is very, very different. Especially when you get that amount of people in one room. And also when you add in, the people that have been about this work for the last, one of them in particular, the last 6 or 7 years, and then probably the rest of the group from probably 3 years onwards in one way, shape or form, but certainly over the last year, the people that have been running about it full time in terms of doing the work every single day. When you get maybe half a dozen or maybe 8, 9, 10 of us in the one room all sitting in meditation, then you can lift things up. You absolutely can lift things up. Which again, it sounds mental, but that's just the way it is when you're in a sacred space like that, which we create in meditation. And I'm just realising how mental that sounds, but that's the truth. When you're all sitting in meditation, the people that run about that, through entrainment and simply by the power of our intention and our work, then people are going to be, they're going to have some sort of experience themselves that you would never get just basically lying around on your own, and then we understand how it goes together in terms of the practices and what it's all about and where I'm getting my information from and how the information and the inspirations came through me, how I've put it together, and then you add into that the intention to basically help people and take this to the world, which is what it's all about. The intention is to help as many people as possible, always. So that experience live, getting into that room, being on about us, being on about me, hearing my story, and then this most significant part is going through the actual process itself. I can talk about it till I'm blue in the face. We all know that. I get excited by it, I get inspired by it, and all the work and the tools and the great teachers I've been blessed with, which there are so many of. But when you actually get into that space, and talk is so cheap, so you need to experience it. And when people go through that experience, then lo and behold, the difference between the start of the day when people walked into the room, quiet and kind of sheepish, a lot of people, obviously a lot of nerves going on and not quite sure what you're getting into. And then when you get the background in terms of what to expect, there's always a disclaimer, and I don't mean like a physical disclaimer, but there's always a disclaimer in terms of when you start to do this work, then things are going to come up. That's why we do it, and I think that's one of the biggest differences. In fact, it is the biggest difference from the work that I'm doing with this breathwork, in terms of compared to most other breathwork instructors. They will basically take you through the process of teaching you to breathe and teaching you the system, whether it's Wim Hof method or whether it's a Buteyko method or whatever it is you're doing, the yogic breathing. So you're basically given the breath work and you go through it, and then whatever comes up comes up. But with me, the intentional breath and why we're doing it is a tool for healing. It's a tool that's designed to basically allow you to go inside, and get stuff up and get it out. Because once we get all that out, this is where the breath is the bridge back inside you. And a lot of people have never been back inside themselves, and a lot of people have never stopped and went back inside their hearts and back inside their souls and had a good look as to see what it is, how they're doing and where they're at, and perhaps where they've been. And when you go inside and you stop the mind and you get out your head and you reconnect back into your heart and back into your soul, then absolutely, in that space where the intention is to heal, then things can come up, no question whatsoever. So that's the really disclaimer. And I saw it probably for the first time, really the significance of it, when I was training with Wim Hof back in 2017, up in the Polish mountains. And every morning you would be in this room. It was like a dungeon underneath the hotel, like a basement in the hotel. And for probably 90 minutes to 2 hours every day, they would basically, the drums were going and the instructors were taking you through really stressful, power breathing they would call it, where you're generating massive amounts of stress, pressurising the brain, pushing up all this chemistry, all this stress up into your brain, with the intention to, reset the body for the day, reset the heat, and then generate enough of kind of stress hormones within your body for the day ahead, whether it was going up the mountain or sitting in the alpine kind of snowmelt, or even the expansion that took place with that whole week. But the thing that I saw, and one of the biggest challenges that I saw at the time and actually verbalised to them at the time, that was just wee Murphy Gill jumping up on the back of the table, was the stuff that was coming up with this breath work, and how they never had really a support network to deal with that. I spent a lot of that week, in fact I spent every night that week basically speaking to people and really just helping people. Stuff that was coming up, childhood stuff was coming up, some of the stories and some of the things that were being released, in that space of, power breathing every morning, like blowing your brains out, literally. And then, all this stuff is coming up, and then, the challenge I had was all Wim was at the bar getting pushed with the boys, and then there was nobody really there to mop up the things that were coming up. I had a huge challenge with that at the time, as I do with any breathwork instructor, who lies somebody flat on their back and asks you to close your eyes and puts you down, and then takes you through the breathwork. Then at that point, if stuff comes up, I think you must have the skill set to be able to deal whatever it is that's coming up, because if not, then you shouldn't really be doing it. It's a sacred, position that you hold, and that's one of the huge challenges, not just with the breathwork, but the cold exposure as well. All these pop-up gurus and all these kind of absolute clowns would be the best way to put it, that are basically, they see a practice and they get rid of it themselves, and it helps them themselves. And then, they're chucking people into freezing cold water because they can do it. They think that it's all right. They're no real training. But the breath is sometimes, I would say, even more dangerous, because of what happens when you go inside. And these practices, these tools and techniques will get you back inside yourself. And at that point, depending on what's in there and what comes up, then obviously whoever is in charge, whoever is in control of that, they must have the ability to help you, the stuff that's coming up. Most of them don't, obviously, so that's something I've always had, massive challenges with. And the disclaimer for me, because it doesn't matter what's coming up. I don't care whether it's PTSD, I don't care whether it's sexual abuse, I don't care, whatever the mental health condition or the label or the challenges you've been facing. I've been through most of them. I've got most of the t-shirts myself in this journey that I'm on, this mission that I'm on, from the warning story that I used to be in terms of where I was, to the example of how you make it better. And I've said on here before that I don't really think you ever get back to the way that it was meant to be. I was speaking to a man this morning who's been vaccine damaged, and I think a lot about myself and how I was before, the vaccination for myself at 13 years old, and the guy before that, and then, my health and well-being since then, the impact that I had on my nervous system, the impact that it's had on my mind, in terms of hyperstimulation in my head and overthinking, I believe, because my brain's been fired by stress hormones. But, whether you get it back to, the way that it was meant to be, or the way that it should have been, or could have been, probably not. But it then becomes a case of what's the best that you can make it, and that's what it really needs to be all about. How do you take what you've got, and that's something that's going to be coming out a lot over the years. Because of the old COVID, and whether it's a vaccination or the virus, this is unknowns we're dealing with now in terms of the long-term impact that it's having on people. I'm getting referrals all the time just now from professionals, medical professionals, who basically are seeing people coming in with these high elevated levels of anxiety, panic attacks, overwhelmment, stress, and having all these physical symptoms within the body. And really, when you go through the medical checks, then there's nothing there. You can't detect it. As with me, if I was to go and get different tests when I was like 13, 14 years old, pre the jag that I got, and then if you'd have tested me after it, then obviously there's nothing within the system. But the physical symptoms that I've been experiencing my whole life, and then watching people now what they're going through, in terms of the negative impact that it's had on their life, that's something that is going to be a long-term kind of suck it and see, and then we'll just need to work out how we get beyond that and how we can make it get it the best that we can. And it really it upsets me terribly. It really does. It's I find it very challenging hearing people's stories that have been normal, and then they go with the best intentions because they've been told on television, they've been told by the experts and the doctors that this is what you need to be doing, that it's going to save your life, and so many of them can literally link it back to that exact day when it happened, and then they've been compromised ever since. And then their new life experience, what they're now living under, is something that if it has been done by design or for whatever reason, it's really, really unfortunate, and it's very, very sad, but at the same time, no matter how bad it is, then we need to be looking at the solutions. How do we make it better, and how do we get back to as good as we can, so that's where this work, that's where the practices that I'm teaching, that's where the programme that I'm sharing, I really believe that the reconnection process that takes place, that reset and reconnect back into the self, which is divine. We are divine in nature. It's inside of us. We bring it into this world with us. We come from a space that source energy. Some people call it God, whatever that is to you, whatever that means to you, consciousness, the divine mind, the field, the way, whatever it is. We come from that space and we carry it inside of us. We carry a piece of the divine inside of us, in our heart and in our soul, absolutely. But when we die, we go back to it. But in the meantime, during this life experience, the separation from it is something that so many people have no idea. We're trapped in ignorance. So many people are lost, and the biggest challenge that they face is because of the answers and the solutions that are presented to them in terms of where do you find the answers. You go to the medical profession, you go to some sort of therapist, and they want to talk about how bad it was or what happened to you, or especially if they've the ability to basically medicate you. If they can write you a prescription, then good luck. If you start to take the pills and medication, so many stories over the last few years I've heard about people going in with like different physical conditions that, to me, straight away, you can feel it as like that must have came from COVID, whether the vaccine or the actual virus itself, and with physical conditions, and still obviously they're buoyant and they're just kind of looking for answers, and then all of a sudden end up in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different anti-psych medications or antidepressants or all sorts of stuff, getting pains in their kidneys and pains in their chest, and before you know it, the doctor's prescribing antidepressants or anti-anxiety tablets, and then the addiction that can come from them is just insane. And once you start to put them into your body, then obviously the body's compromised, and because it's starting to deal with something that it's never dealt with before, and it's trying to make sense of that. So then you start digging that hole. And some of the people I'm working with just now, and some of the people I'm seeing, it's really sad, to see where they are. And again, human beings with free will, and the best will, and that desire to do the right thing. When somebody tells you on the television, or some professional doctor at a world level tells you this is what you need to do, or the world leaders, thinking about your man, the trumpet. At the time when I watched him talking about Operation, it was when he brought in the vaccines in America. He was the man that really rushed them through in record speed. There's loads of kind of recordings of him, boasting about how quick they did it, and how many lives it was going to save, and how everybody had to get it. And then you see people now that lives absolutely are going to be shortened, but really kind of the quality of life is going to be compromised in ways that people never signed up for. So at that point, massively challenging. And it kind of feeds into the world just now, the way the world is. Watching what's going on in America just now, Hollywood and the kind of California and all the fires that are taking place. I was kind of tuning into that a wee bit just to see what's going on within the world, and really sad, when you see the people that are losing everything, and also very interesting from the truther point of view, when cars are getting burnt to the ground, and then right beside it there's a big tree that hasn't been touched, and then the house is burnt to the ground and there's bushes on about. It's just fascinating to watch the whole thing, and the Great Reset, as they spoke about a wee while back, you know, for me it's always been a divine reset. It feels like the will of God is the only thing that's going to fix this, and no surprise when you see that area and all of the collective consciousness, you know, where people are. And please know that anybody that's lost everything, the normal people and the businesses, and you know that have been basically, you know, that have been, you know, they fell foul to whatever it is the cause behind this. I send them all the best, but at the same time, you know, you've got to kind of look at the irony of it. When you look at it's literal hell, you know, and then, you know, the place is burning to the ground, you know. So again, but the great reset for me, the spiritual energies that are coming through, the whether it's, you know, whatever it is, you know, whether it's God herself or himself or whatever that means, or whether it's angels and archangels, watching the medical medium talking about the amount of angels that are in play just now. He talks about spirit of compassion. And how these different entities are basically helping to protect us, you know, those who are not, you know, on the dark side of the force, watching from, you know, these different entities, and ascended masters and beings are basically trying to help humanity just now. But at the same time, you know, it's obviously very, very difficult going through these times when the challenges that we face, and it's only going to get worse. You know, that's the thing. It's not going to get any better. It's not going to get to a place where, you know, they're going to apologise and they're going to back down and stop poisoning us with whatever they're spraying in the sky and what they're putting into the water, and, you know, what's in the foods and all that kind of stuff. You know, so at that point, the responsibility to take control and to, you know, to try and do the best that you can for yourself. That's the bit in the way that I've always seen this. You know, whatever it is that's going on a world level, or even if it's, you know, direct experience to you, you know, in your reality just now, then the only way out of it is to, you know, take control yourself and do whatever you can to make it better for yourself. And that's what this work is all about. The work is all about, you know, seeing what it is, you know, and then, okay, what can I do about it? What can I then go and do for myself to make it better? And the bridge at the weekend, the experience life, you know, that gift to the world, the reset and reconnect back into the self, you know, reconnecting and remembering how you're meant to feel, how you're able to feel, the ability to get out of your head, to switch off the stress, which again is done by design. You know, they're trying to keep us in our heads, of course they are. This information age we're in is absolutely madness the way that it's playing out. Excuse me a wee second. You know, but once you have the realisation and you have the awareness to see what it is they're doing, then the ability, then the tools and the techniques to make it better. That's what this is all about. You know, so watching people coming in, you know, with all these stresses and strains and not being able to sleep and being anxious and panic attacks and all that kind of horribleness, then when you actually realise that there's a different way and there is an actual answer and a solution to make things better, and then not just like hearing about it or hearing me talking about it, but then going through the experience and then getting that. So by the end of that, it was a 3-hour session on Sunday. The breathwork itself was probably an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45 minutes-ish. Deep relaxation based on functional breathing, how we're supposed to breathe as human beings, nasal breathing, changing the chemistry, changing the biomechanics, you know, like slowing it down so that we've got enough time to bring in the inspiration, that life force, get it to the correct portion of the lungs, and then, you know, giving it enough time to work its magic. That in itself can be a literal miracle, you know, just by breathing properly, breathing the way that it's meant to be. And then, you know, my system, the intentional breath, once we get to that place where you can't think and you're in deep relaxation, again, the confusion between relaxation and meditation is great. People think it's the same thing. People think that meditation should be going in and experiencing nothing, just peace of mind, and that isn't it. You know, the meditation, my interpretation of it is to tap into the field of consciousness. It's to really unite with God. It's to become one with God. It's to be in spirit and to be inspired. So that's an active process for me. Again, really recently, I call it full God, over the last 2 weeks, where, you know, I've taken every single thing out of my life that was detrimental or would keep me away from that. I was nibbling away at caffeine a wee bit over the last kind of few months. I would have maybe one a day sometimes, and then maybe one a week. The sugar was creeping back in again as well, mainly through boredom for me. I find this life experience very challenging on many different fronts. Once you experience enlightenment, as Castaneda said, the numbing effects of daily awareness are your biggest challenge. The sorcerer, someone who lives from the source, as he called it, the biggest challenge you face is having to deal with the realities, you know. So for me, I do get bored now and again, and I will reach for things to make this life experience better, this human experience easier and better. And after a while, you know, the detrimental effect that it has on my body because of my diet and how clean it is and how I live in terms of awareness and body awareness. Also, I'm getting a wee bit older as well now. That's happening every single day. But the body awareness as to the negative effect of caffeine and what it does to me and how it affects me and how it affects my sleep and how it switches on my nervous system, again because of what the vaccines did to me. The last thing my nervous system needs is to be stimulated in any way, shape or form, because I find myself going from, calm and zen, and then any stimulation whatsoever, then it's like unleashing the madman within. It's in there, it's still in there. The guy, my natural nature, is I'm definitely a bit of a fighter. But now, obviously because of the last 30 years and the light work and tending to myself and dealing with all that stuff, it's just interesting how some of those like unconscious responses can still come through. So for the last couple of weeks, since I came back from Malaga, after absolutely letting our hair down, even with a wee bit of meat, I hadn't eaten meat for... when's the last time? The first Ironman I did, first full distance Ironman was in 2010, which is in Ross. So the year after that, I basically switched to plant-based because of the experience I had during that race. My stomach was in bits. Just towards the end of the race, my stomach was gone. Or the traditional ways of feeling yourself as a triathlon Ironman athlete. When you're on your feet and you're running and swimming for, it was 12 hours the first one for me. When you're doing that and you're expending that amount of energy, then the way that they would fuel is by caffeine and just really stuff that's easy on your stomach. And my experience during that race was horrific, in terms of the amount of caffeine gels that I'd had, and it wasn't pretty, let me tell you, towards the end of the race. So off the back of that, I decided to go full plant-based, and all the kind of stomach stuff I was dealing with at the time settled down, and I hadn't eaten meat until Malaga there, hadn't touched it until we were out for a meal. I think it was the last night with Michael and Fern. We had a beautiful bottle of wine between us, a couple of wee Spanish beers. And again, I don't drink. I don't ever really drink at all. I can go years without a drink. Back here, I've no interest in it. It doesn't really do anything for me. But in the right environment, over there, nice wee bottle of Rioja, and just in the right environment, and this beautiful tapas came out with this wonderful, just succulent, it was fillet of some description. Medium rare, it just looked fantastic, and I felt the desire to get into it, and I loved it. I had basically one forkful, and I really enjoyed it. It was I didn't have any profound, significant release of energy within my body that I thought, right, that's it, I need to bring it back. I haven't done it since. I had no desire to basically do it again. But again, just that awareness to see and try stuff and never say never. Never really say no. Always have an open heart and open mind. Wayne Dyer used to say that only God can say no. And for me, that time and basically trying it and just seeing what it was, just letting the hair down a bit was fantastic. But since I've been back and really kind of. I think when we came back off the plane, the bag went missing. Ryanair just was an absolute. I'm going to use the analogy of a plane crash, but I won't use that. But it was an absolute. It was a piss take from start to finish. And the bag appeared 3 or 4 days later. And the stress it was under when I came off the plane, and then the realisation I had a coffee. I think out of the 6 days, probably 5 days I'd had a coffee. So my sleep probably wasn't the best over there, in terms of getting proper sleep. And then coming back, just the stress I felt under when the bag was missing, and just feeling my response to it, and I thought, right, this isn't good. I need to do something about this. So the desire to get better, the desire to really get into this year, especially the stuff that was coming up, all the stuff I'd basically designed before Christmas, that was really to get my shit together for January time. So the plan to go full God came very, very quickly. It felt like a gift for God, and over the last couple of weeks it's been that. I've been living like a monk, really like a sage. Very, very clean on every front. I've been in bed early. I slept for nearly, 9-10 hours last night. I've been 2 or 3 times I've slept for 11 hours, which anybody that knows me over the last 30 years, that hasn't been the case. It's been 3-4 hours, an absolute stretch. But I think I'm still recovering from last year in terms of how tired and how much I put into it. And it's been great to basically, not have the stimulants in my body. It's been great to just, be at peace. It's a wee bit boring, I'll be honest with you. I find myself getting a wee bit bored. I find things a wee bit mundane at the minute. As always, what do I do to make that better? I'm basically trying to help as many people as possible, by fully diving into this mission and really kind of doing everything that I can. And it's really interesting to watch. The minute I go full God, then the phone doesn't stop. The deal that I made a long time ago, I say a deal, it wasn't like, I'm sitting and signing a contract with God. People talk about, signing their souls away and all that. And I did, I suppose. I made a deal with the divine, once I got it for myself to really help as many people as possible. But along that way, you obviously, Jim, as a human being, there's things that you do on your own, and there's things that I need to do a lot of the time because of my own journey, my physical experience, to make that a wee bit easier to find relief for myself. A lot of the time it's about running away and no dealing with things, the same as anybody else. But really since I've been back, it's been full God. I've been knocking lumps out it. It's coming from everywhere. And I mean that from all the different corners of the world, all the different bits of the world, the amount of messages that are coming in, the opportunities that are coming in, the people that want to get on about it, on all different fronts. And then the wave of momentum that's came through this experience live has been fantastic. My desire is to help people. It's dead simple. That's the juice that I get. I don't get anything from the praise or the thanks or even the money. The money means nothing to me. I grew up with a lot of money because of my parents' hard work. And they grew up with nothing. They started with nothing, as we did when I was born, but so I always still hear the stories of my dad. My dad would famously say that we started with fuck all, and we're going to end with fuck all, so it doesn't matter, just go out and do your best and have fun and enjoy it, and you've got it, and if you don't, you don't. That's kind of always been my kind of philosophy growing up. And since Ibiza, the version that came back for Ibiza, the beating that I got, and for whatever reason, the human being that came back, the desire to make money and the desire to buy things and have things. I like quality things. I like things that are practical. I like things that I can use. I like things like that wee flask that I got for myself just before Christmas. I've got loads of different high quality water bottles that I'm using every single day, and I use them till they break or I lose them. But in terms of stuff, flashy things to make me feel good, there's nothing in this world really does that for me. It's really interesting to watch. So for me, the juice is to help people. The juice is to basically, the feelings that I get is, as my brother John Maguire says, the giver's gift, which I love that. I really like that. In terms of when you're helping people, the gift that you get, the feelings that I get by other people finding relief by getting on about this work. That's what I'm going to be leaving behind. That's the plan, to leave all of that behind, so we can, take it to the world. This year is the plan. The team is ready. We are ready. I think over the last 3 decades, it's taken me to this point to be fully ready, and when you see what we've created with not just the programme, which the programme, it's no version 2, it's been updated consistently over the year. It's never felt completely finished. There's always, and it isn't ever going to be finished, there's going to be some fantastic announcements coming up in terms of what we're going to be adding to it. The plan is to have an entire holistic system. That's always been the gig, and without really realising it, having people come in and have the ability to tune in to the stuff we're doing, the stuff that helps, the ancient ways, whether it's the stuff that I'm teaching, the vast system that I'm teaching, and then we're looking to add in, some of the ancient practices as well, like yoga and qigong, and even functional movement is going to be a big part of it, being able to deal with the stresses and strains of the body and giving the body exactly what it needs. But also the kind of the juicing and the blending and the diets and the supplementation and looking after yourself properly. That's a huge part of it. One of the biggest challenges that we see is the amount of people that are sick because of what they're putting into their mouth. Again, ignorance, we just don't know. Most people don't know. So the entire system in V2, which I thought was going to be released at the end of the month, when this all came through, the experience live, in the 3 Sundays in January, this time last year, which when I think about it, it feels about 20 years, and at the same time it's been very, very quick. But January last year we had the first 1 day to change your life. That was which is really, I would say it's probably, for anybody that's interested in really implementing this work, and bringing it into your life, that's a day you should really go to, because it explains the entire system, it explains the entire programme. We did that last January, and it was basically a launch of the programme that Michael and Fern and myself created. So all the videos, all the different breath works, all the types of breath work, how to breathe properly, how to switch on the nervous system, how to switch it off, cold exposure, heat exposure, the relaxations, the meditation, all the recordings, hundreds of recordings now, hundreds of hours of recordings that we managed to capture over the year, which are still being added to every single week. We're still recording and adding on to them. But at January time last year, when we released the programme, V1 we're going to call it, I suppose now, then it was released to the inner circle for the first month. Really just to get feedback and really iron out any kind of creaks or anything that was wrong with it before we released it to the world. And then it was end of February, we basically let it go and we put it out to the world. And me before Christmas thinking about the basically the anniversary of it, which I believed was the end of January. It really wasn't. It was end of February. And now, because of the recent last couple of weeks, all the updates that are going to be added to it, we've decided to wait until the actual date when we released it to the world, which was going to be, it's going to be the end of February, and it's going to be a one day to change your life, looking like New Lanark again, just because of, obviously it's my home. It's an amazing place. It's a fantastic, what a location it is, what a building. Something about that space, something about that river and the falls and Mother Nature and all that kind of good stuff. So the plan is to do the experience live to the end of the month, and then February I'm going to be talking a lot about the programme, going to be doing a lot of work into the programme to get it finished and get it complete. The app is ready, we're now using the app, which is great, so much easier than the way it was before. But also all the additional information, as well as the teachers I'm going to be bringing in with me, and basically helping with the ancient ways, the stuff that makes things better, which I'm really excited about, to allow them to come in and to stand beside them and basically take this mission, this vehicle, the vortex and the programme to the world with a singular desire to help people. So really interesting, the whole thing. For me, the way is the way. I talk about the way all the time, and watching people, when they came in, and really getting that was a 3-hour session, and that was the biggest challenge they experienced online before. Half an hour isn't enough, me talking for 10-15 minutes, and then taking through people just a guided breath work, and then basically switching off their stress, reconnecting back into how they're able to feel. That isn't really long enough, especially when you see how vast the programme is. So to have 3 hours with somebody and let them hear the full story, and then take them through like a proper experience, without getting into too much of the science or too much of the wares of the house or how it all goes together. Really to give them the experience of like getting a break from themselves, getting out of their heads and switching off the stress, and maybe getting a break for their worries or their fears or their whatever it is, and then reconnecting back into their hearts and back into the souls. And watching what happens, when people, get that experience, that reconnection process, is really what it's all about. And at the end of the day, watching from the start of the day to the end of the day, one of the things I love to do at the end of any session is to share the love, to give a hug, to express these feelings you've got inside you. Really to connect with other human beings. That's what it's about, is to take away the fears, and the only way that can really happen, or the best way that can happen, is a reconnection process back to yourself first. So once you're feeling in that place at the end of the session, where you're feeling good and you're blessed with love and light and grace and goodness and joy and happiness and appreciation, all the good stuff, when you're feeling like that, then at that point, to give somebody, a human being, a hug, a total stranger, a hug, it's just fantastic to watch, that reconnection process taking place, as well as obviously, in the meditation, the reconnection back to the self, back into your heart, back into your soul. And for some people, reconnecting back to the divine. One of the things I asked the programme members in the inner circle on Sunday was about enlightenment. Who's experienced enlightenment over the last year? Who's experienced enlightenment. And it was interesting, there was probably 6 people out of maybe 10 that were there from the programme that have literally experienced enlightenment. And enlightenment just means the direct experience of the divinity that's inside you. That's it. It's no way you're cutting about with robes and white feathers and manifesting stuff. That's not the level we're talking about. Enlightenment for me, the ultimate enlightenment would be to realise that you are God, that you know the full thing and you're not God Almighty, but you carry a piece of it inside you, of course you do, and that realisation, that to me, that's enlightenment, the direct experience of the divinity that we carry inside every single one of us. That's enlightenment. And it was interesting to watch the people in the room, because when you look at them, one's a brickie, one was a plumber, one is a plumber, one's got his own business, and then the women, within the room, normal women, mammies, that this time last year, even some of them had been on the path for a certain period of time, but really kind of committing to the work and immersing in this work and immersing in this programme and the daily practices every single day, and then going through things like the ceremony. The ceremony weekend is an absolute shortcut. One of my inner circle last night, with a session in here last night, and he was talking about, I spoke about enlightenment, and he said, I put my hand up, he says, but I kind of felt like I cheated it a wee bit, because he got it through one of the ceremonies, and it doesn't matter how you get there, it doesn't matter how you experience it, because at some point you need to come back to the human experience. At some point it comes back to just being you, the ego, the lower self, We're not supposed to be here, floating about in clouds and being gods. That isn't what it's about this lifetime. And I do believe, the work that's needing done is going to take human beings to do it. So I think, as a human being, going through it as a spiritual being at the same time as well, the ability to go between both. For those that are just locked in the human experience, the lower self and the worries and the stresses and the strains and trying to make sense of the circus and, pay the bills and navigate their way through this literal madness that we're living in just now. Looking at those fires in California, I mean, how do you make your way through that, from the human realm of loss? And then seeing that the insurance companies, I mean, oh man, they will burn in hell. But the insurance companies that basically, cancelled all the fire insurance, I mean, you couldn't make that up. And then all these hussies, $100 million hussies, and then some, and all these people that are losing everything with no insurance. And you go, come on, fuck. I mean, when do we all get to a point where enough's enough and something happens? Or what else are they going to do, to suppress us? So to go through something like that, and I think for me, it's like if you're just going through that with your head and your mind and trying to make sense of that with your intellect, there are so many people, not going to make it, because of illness, because of stress, because of dis-ease, because I've lost everything. And then when you really see them, and I watched, who's your man, George Galloway, who I've just been tuning into recently. I don't do politics, but I started watching the stuff over in Palestine and Israel, probably towards the end of last year, when people were talking about genocide and talking about, how these people basically had their country taken off them, thanks to the British, and all that kind of stuff back in the day. But how they're basically fenced in and they're just getting obliterated and basically wiped out as a race. And I started listening to him because he's been talking about it for a long time, just kind of tuning in and seeing where he was with it, and then the sense that he was making, and in terms of speaking his truth, and you can tell at a certain level whether something feels true or not, and then you start to see the politicians at a world level, and how the atrocities that are taking place. I remember watching one of the Irish was a wee clip, one of the Irish politicians basically in tears in Parliament in Ireland, calling out the atrocities, and tears, a grown man, like a man older than me, standing in tears talking about the atrocities that are taking place, over in Israel, and how he hoped that your man Netanyahu burns in hell. And you're thinking, that's an Irish, that's a politician standing in Parliament, calling out for another head of state to burn in hell. Like, what is that's going on? That's what really got me into it, to see what was happening in the world, what's going on over there. Because I'm normally all focused on the light, all focused on solutions, but I think you need to see now and again where it is. And watching your man Galloway talking the other day about people losing everything. And then he was talking about obviously what's going on, within the Middle East, and how these people, the amount of children that are being killed, the atrocities that are taking place with families are being obliterated and wiped out, and how there's different levels to losing everything, and how the material life in Hollywood and California and all that kind of stuff. That's all the ego, isn't it? That's all that lower dimensional stuff. So there's levels to that, and there's levels to suffering. So if you're trying to make your way through that, I don't know how you do that. I don't believe it as a way to get through that, other than the spiritual practices by going inside. And when I experienced that first, kind of real enlightenment, I had the realisation that no matter what it is that ever comes my way for the rest of my days, there's probably a couple of things, obviously, your loved ones and things like that, but everything else, all the material stuff, all the houses and the homes and the whatever it is, the watches or the bikes, whatever the stuff, the money, that could really be taken away. And it's like, okay, it doesn't matter. All good. It has no impact in terms of who I am as a human being and the journey that I'm on. All that stuff can be replaced. Obviously, your loved ones and things that are dear to your heart, the things that's really important, the things that really that should mean the most to you, that's very different. So that's where this work, being in this, this state of, a spiritual being, making your way through this world, I believe that's the only way we get through. Certainly just now, but also what's coming up, and it's how we normalise that, how we normalise these processes, how we normalise God, how we normalise it away from the religions, and which for me is all about separation. It's all about creating the wars and creating the fighting and basically going against each other, but the spiritual way, the spiritual being in this world, meditation, reconnecting back to the divine, being in spirit, feeling that presence within you, knowing that it's inside of you, there's nothing to be afraid of, standing in that way, living your life in that way and making your way through this world, in the presence of the divine. That for me is the only way we do it. So really excited and grateful for the way. The Great Reset and everything that's happening, all the challenges of the world, it's going to come and it's going to go. And it's probably a good thing what's happening just now, because it isn't working. There's so many people are sick, there's so many people are suffering. And for me, the only thing to do is to tend to yourself. I'm talking a lot about being selfish just now, getting into that flow state every single day, tending to yourself before the day begins, which again is breathwork and meditation, switching off the head and sitting in silence with the intention to reconnect back to God. Because once you get that, once you tap into that, once you really experience the divinity that's inside you, then the whole world changes, and that's what this is about. That's what this work is all about. And, blessed, absolutely. Grateful in so many ways. It has been a really difficult journey in many, many ways. It's been an incredible journey. It feels like it's my life's work to pass this on. I am blessed with the team that's run about me. They know who they are, the people that are showing up, that have been attracted to this mission, and they themselves, they've been called to it as well. They're here to help, they're here to take it to the world. Most of them are here for free, most of them are helping me, as I'm just now, doing it to be, every penny we're earning is going towards the mission, every penny is going to try and take this towards the world. It's going to sales and marketing so we can wear people on about it, so we can get the world back to the way that it's meant to be, so that's really, really exciting. And going forward, it's there are no many solutions out there. I had a wee sneaky on sick talk, as I now call it, earlier on, and I saw the Poison one out running with his top half with all his tattoos. There's another dude up here, another, I don't even know how to describe him, a life coach, watching what they're talking about, and just bullshit. It's just nonsense, it's just rubbish. It's all about them, it's just their modalities in terms of who they are and like fucking how, and it's like, at certain points, at a certain level, it can't be about you. The coaching and the helping people, it needs to be about them, it needs to be about humanity, and it can't be about you getting the things for yourself. Anybody that's at that level and still doing that, it's too late for that. So the collective, people that are showing up to help me, which there are many just now, even had a conversation this morning after late last night, things going a wee bit wobbly in terms of people's intentions and what they want to use this for. People want to get on about this and then they want to get a bit of it, and I feel the custodian of this work, I feel the custodian of this vortex and this mission that we're on. I am here to basically pay it forward and to help as many people as we can for the rest of my days, reconnect back to the divine, reconnect back to Mother Nature, absolutely, and then reconnect back to obviously themselves. That's the starter for 10. And this Sunday we're going to go again. There's almost 200 sign-ups. I was down at New Lanark today, looking at a bigger room. So if you've signed up to come, please come, or at least tell us you're not coming. That would be great. Don't just no show up, because obviously taking on the bigger room, it's a free event, so it's going to cost me a wee bit more to take on the bigger room, which is completely fine. That's great, but please stay as a courtesy if you're not coming to let us know, and if you are coming, fantastic. Really excited to share it with you. We have a new programme which came through on Saturday morning. I am so grateful for Big Michael and McFadyen sitting in meditation, and the programme feels like too big a jump for a lot of people, and the experience live, they're the bridges in towards it. And me being me, I'm thinking, right, how can we give, what's the next wee bridge that we can basically give people a taste of this, but not give them, the full thing might be too much, jumping in at that level and committing to, even though it's only £1 a day. As Mark Burns said at the weekend, I mean, fucking hell, like, if you're drinking one coffee and a cake a week, or a cup of tea and a cake a week, that's your £7 for the week, more or less. You're going anywhere just now, any cost or whatever it is, and you buy yourself a cup of tea and a cake, or a coffee and a cake, you'll not get much change out of a tenner, so the investment in yourself, that £1 a day, and the value that we're getting, that might be too much for people, it might be too much to community and the language we're using, so for me the stepping stone was like, what can we give them, what can we actually present as an opportunity, and sitting in meditation probably 4:30, 5 o'clock on Saturday morning, it came through. The programme Light is a new programme that we've got, and it's basically 5 videos that you can buy. There's an exchange, and again the exchange is so you invest in yourself. It's £19.99, so it's £20 for a 3-month subscription, and it's basically relaxation, breathwork, meditation, the guided breathwork, and also how to get to sleep as well. There's a recording we did last year called Slumber Party, a Sunday night, the Sunday service, which is on every Sunday with the programme members, and I encourage people to turn up in their pyjamas, and we did a slumber party, so basically putting people to sleep. So these 5 videos, that's the programme. Like Michael put it together inside 4 or 5 hours, hours on the Saturday during the day. It was ready for the Sunday morning, so that when people came, and I explained, as I do with all this stuff, every penny we take, so the programme, like the 20 quid that comes in, that goes straight back into the pot to fund the next bit of the mission, so we can continue to take it to the world. But people leaving there and being able to wake up, whether it's that night, going home and being able to get to sleep and switching off their head, I know because I'm taking them through it, then my voice is significant to a lot of people. Also the music that I use, which I've been using on myself for the last probably 30 years. I've been using one artist in particular, and I've recently, over the last couple of years, started using another, like a yogi artist as well with the music. So that's very important as well, when somebody takes you through it. I remember when I was back in the day listening to meditations, a man called Eli Bay, which I tried to find online. He had a meditation or a guided breathwork called The Healing Light by Eli Bay. I had it in an old tape cassette recording that myself and one of the men I was doing this work at the time, we bought it and I recorded it, and I used to listen to it almost every single day, and it was basically gentle relaxation, and his voice and the music just got me every single time. So obviously when people hear that through me for the first time, that was the biggest challenge up until the programme came along. Like, right, okay, we leave here, they leave the vortex, or they come to a big event, whether it's a Breathe and Believe, all the stuff we did up at Loch Lomond, or kind of travelling the country. When people leave, then where do you go? You can't get anywhere else. It's original to me, and the way we're doing it, the way that people leave, and the literal miracles that take place during that session, then it's obviously, what I've put together and the intention behind it. That's the most important part, is the intention. So now we've got the programme Light, where people come in, and then after they experience it, they can basically leave. They can basically buy it on the day there, and then it's downloadable. So you basically get it into your phone or your whatever it is through the app, and then at that point you've get the ability to basically tune in at any time, for 20 quid, So really interesting how things are coming through, always the desire to help people, always the desire to, take this to the world. There are so much and so many things we're working on just now. There's requests every single day for ceremony retreats. We've now got we're working on a new way of putting the ceremonies together. Based out here, we're still going to be doing the farm up the west coast. Unfortunately, that one in February, because my daughter's birthday next month, we changed it up a wee bit. The plan was to do a ceremony retreat over in Spain, again because of the time and the dates and the castle we looked at, it didn't work. But later on in the year, that's going to be happening international. But at the same time, the desire, there's hundreds of people now looking for ceremony retreats, and listening to the Inner Circle over the weekend, and also Monday Night at Boys Club, the amount of people that go through one of those weekends, and that's the massive change. That's like the big bridge that allows people to go from wherever they are to get to that place where after it their entire life changes. Friday to Monday you come in, you go through the whole process, everything between the breath and the cold and the meditations and the group and the food, and obviously the ceremony itself with the sacred medicine, and what that does to people, that reconnection. It's like a bridge, it's like a shortcut, and it doesn't matter how you get there. It took me 18 years every single day, hundreds of thousands of hours working on myself that nobody knew about, like the moth to the flame, devotional practice to the divine. I remember my wife talking about how back in the day somebody asked her what it was, like how I did it, and she said to me with the conversation, it was basically, it wasn't motivation and it wasn't inspiration, it was devotion. It was like absolute devotion. I have never missed a single day with this stuff, but a ceremony retreat could probably save you the best part of 20 years, by getting on about it. And coming, and it's not the medicine, it's the way, it's the programme, it's the practices that lead up to it through breath work and learning how it goes together. It's going inside and asking the right questions. It's having the ability, once the medicine kicks in, to basically allow it to come through you and knowing what to do when you're right in that pocket, when it's really when the world is opening up and caving in for some people, and then really the intentional life that comes off the back of that, and then the tools and techniques that the programme affords people to then go and then live this intentional life, which is what the programme is. People think the programme's it's almost like a come in and I'm going to give them the answers, or I'm going to coach them through it, and I really try to stay away from that as much as I can. The programme itself is all about intentional living. Nobody has your answers for you. All of your answers are inside. The answers are really like what makes you feel good. That's the way that I teach it. The heart yearns for love, the head wants to be right, but the soul yearns for freedom, so all of your answers are inside of you. And this intentional life, your own life experience, and having the awarenesses, and having the intentional life, the way of being in intention, the desire to make it better, to be in that flow state of alignment. At that point, then you start to realise that your life experience is going to be your greatest teacher, so really excited. It's all about self-reliance, it's all about getting it for yourself, it's all about getting it for yourself first and then paying it forward. Once you master yourself, once you reach that place of mastery, and you know what the self is, at that point then it's all about paying it forward, you know, and that's where we're at just now, to take it to the world, you know, to help as many people as we can at a time where there are no many solutions. And I looked at those couple of coaches who, I know them personally, so I know who they are, and I see their online persona, who they're pretending to be, and I listen to them talking about absolute bullshit about stuff that just doesn't make anything better, taking perspective on things that just doesn't help anybody, and at the same time, you know, just watching people getting round about it and thinking they're going to find their answers because they're coming into somebody with like a lot of certainty, but really when you get beyond it, you know, and I see that a lot with some of the groups that are online just now, some of these big property gurus and some of these like that are turning into, like, they're now becoming like mini Tony Robbinses as well. It's all about self-help and, you know, all that kind of stuff, and you watch them and you go, they're basically stealing people's money. Some of the people that are taking 20, 30, 40 grand to be on their programme, and then they get to the end, the amount of people I know that have been broken with these gurus, you know, coming in and signing up for stuff that, you know, perhaps they themselves as property experts made their money back 10, 15 years ago, but this day and age, trying to make money in property with the way the banks are and the cost of materials and the cost of labour and the cost of ground, the amount of people that are turning up, 30, 40 people to try and flip a council house because they've learned they've just invested 10, 15, 20 grand in some sort of property, you know, a workshop or a cinema, or bought into some sort of group. It's again, it's a circus. There's no answers in it. It's snake oil, and nobody really benefits from it, you know. So that's where this way, you know, back to the spiritual way. This is real. This is absolutely real, and it works, and everything gets better. We tend to the self, the true self, the authentic self. We reconnect back into the heart and back into the soul, and at that point, with inspiration, no motivation. This isn't about getting the stuff and thinking the things are going to make you feel better. It's not about that. It's about finding that self-reliant way of living where every single thing you need, you know, is inside of you. It's about tapping into that power that's inside you. And at that point, all the stuff loses its desire and you get to live your life the way that it's meant to be. You know, so excited what we've got here. I really am. It's real and it's profound and it works. And we see miracles every single day. And we are very much intentionally taking it to the world. There is no rush, we're taking our time. We are one step at a time every single day. We're moving forward, we're going in the correct direction. And the people that's attracting as well, there's a timing for this, where people seem to get around about it. It's very interesting, you know, we ever try to, as I have in the past, try to give it to people, it doesn't work. You know, I see it all the time with people come and they try to bring people back and try to get to somebody. It doesn't work. You know, you need to get it for yourself. And then through inspired living, when you're absolutely flying, when you're feeling great, then people will be drawn to it. And then when somebody asks you what it is that you're doing, especially if they're the bones of their arse, especially if they're struggling, especially if they're broken, they've got nothing left, at that point, then you can say to them, this is what I'm doing. But also, it takes a lot of work. And that's why the pain and the suffering, no matter what it is, you know, whether it's the addictions or the PTSDs or the traumas that people are living with, if it gets bad enough, once it reaches that stage where you think you've done everything and there's no way forward, at that point, that's a great place to find this, because the work, and I call it the work, but it doesn't feel like work, it feels easy. This should never feel hard. The desire to get up out of bed and sit in meditation. I remember for years and years and years, I would wake up and I would go, right, I've got a choice here. I can lie and worry. And a lot of times I'd be in tears worrying, you know, about the stresses and the strains, whether it was financial or my health or my well-being or worrying about whatever it was. I can worry about anything. But the ability to get up and have that choice to go and sit in meditation and reconnect back to God and sit in silence and just be in spirit, that becomes a choice. And once you know the choice, you know, and the ability to make that choice, the whole world changes and everything opens up. And then when you see the programme and all the different levels to it and how far you can take it, so you can fulfil your potential and get every single thing you came here to get. Because I believe if you reach that stage of having everything, if you get to a point, you go to these like property gurus and you be learning to become a billionaire, a gazillionaire, and you get everything. I really feel, in fact I know, because I've worked with some of them, and a lot of them have got everything, they've got fuck all, they've got nothing. Their wife doesn't like them and their wains don't fucking know them, because they're in their office trying to make money 24/7, they're chasing the money all the time, behind the curtains, you know, out their nut, you know, whacked out their nut and coffee and basically sitting trying to make money all day, like out their head in stress. So if you really get to that point where you've got everything, at some point, you know, when you reach the end of your life, you can't take it away. So the question would be like, how's it went? You know, do you feel fulfilled? And I've seen it. I've seen people with everything and they've got nothing, you know. So then it needs to be the stuff that money can't buy, you know, the peace of mind and the fulfillment and the joy and the contentment in your heart and fulfilling your potential. I believe we're given a divine mission. I believe we sign up for a divine mission and we're gifted it before we come. And it's all about fulfilling that potential, because every single person that I come across, they've all got a feeling that they knew this was meant to be a wee bit better than it is for them. In fact, most of them believe there was something way greater and they just can't work out what it is. And once you reconnect back into yourself, once you stop chasing the rainbows and stop chasing the money, and you start to do stuff that's actually worthwhile, especially just now when the world is in the state it's in, that, I believe, is how you fulfil your life's potential. So exciting times, it really is. It's loads of good stuff. Gratitude for the way, gratitude for these practices, gratitude for the tools and the techniques that enable us to make our way through this life in these crazy times, and still, the joy to be alive, to be happy, to be vital, to feel good, no matter what's going on about you. It's so important, and it's the way that it's meant to be. You need to be aware that your life is happening, even though you're going through all the struggles, it's still happening day by day. So at that point, you need to be savouring it, you need to be making the most that you can every single day, and that's the plan, to help people become empowered, to take back their power, to reconnect and to remember who they are, and not just who they are, but all that they are, and then at that point go and live their life the way that it's meant to be. That's what it's all about. So, thanks for tuning in, thanks for listening, love and light to me, from me to you and yours. Have a fantastic day wherever you are, God bless, take it easy, I look forward to seeing you soon, and bye for now.